I'm back and I'm surviving 200 days in Minecraft Hardcore. First thing I did once I returned was to feed my animals. The chicken coop was also getting more populated, which was good. However, it was now time to also start thinking about getting some netherite. So I headed inside and just started to clear everything out. And by using this strategy, it didn't take too long before eventually finding some ancient debris. According to Google, I needed 36 pieces of ancient debris in order to craft a full set, so I had to get to work. On my return home, I got jumped by a wither skeleton and he almost gave me a heart attack. However, I did manage to find 5 ancient debris, so it was a successful run. Once I returned, I placed down an anvil in order to repair my pickaxe. I then went ahead and melted all of the ancient debris in order to craft a netherite ingot. So I thought you only needed a netherite ingot in order to upgrade your armor. However, you also needed something called a netherite upgrade template. And these templates could evidently only be found in bastions down in the nether, so I made my way back. And finding one of these bastions was kinda difficult. And finally I managed to track down this demolitionist and kill him. Sadly, I didn't find a bastion this time, so I returned back to the base. I headed over to my enchantment table in order to enchant, for some reason, one of my old pickaxes. Either way, I was lucky because I got silk touch and efficiency 4, so I just had to repair it. I then hopped in my minecart in order to get to the village on the other side of the mountain in order to get a mending villager. And it didn't take too long before he eventually got a mending trade. And that's the origin of Mendy Boy. However, his mending didn't last long, and once I returned the next day, he had lost his trade. I then went ahead and spoke with another villager, and eventually he got the infinity enchant, so I returned the next day in order to make the trade. And this enchant was really good for my bow, as it now meant I only needed 1 arrow to shoot an infinite amount. I then decided that instead of traveling all the way to the village every time I wanted to make a trade, I instead would move them to my base. So I just carved out a hole on the side of the mountain in order to store them in separate rooms inside. However, the villagers had to wait a bit because now I was excited about going down in the caves to find some more diamonds and ores. After a bit of strip mining, I eventually stumbled upon a little diamond vein. I decided to use my silk touch pickaxe in order to bring all of the ore up to the surface. Eventually I stumbled upon this cave where I immediately spotted some diamonds. And I needed to be careful because there was a lot of monsters in this cave. And once I returned, I placed down the 11 diamonds I had found and used my fortune 3 pickaxe on them. And this ended up being 21 diamonds, which was pretty nice. The next day I started flattening out this area behind my base in order to plant some trees. And I went to my XP farm in order to get some experience before continuing mining and exploring the caves. Eventually I stumbled upon this mine shaft, which wasn't really too exciting, but I did find a golden apple in one of the chests. So once I returned back to the base on day 112, I could use my fortune 3 pickaxe on all of the ores I had found. Nice. And then finally it was time to transport the villagers back to the base. And this process actually went pretty smoothly. I then had to get the trades that I wanted, and he got the mending trade fairly quickly. However, it was a bit too expensive, so I just kept on going until he had a cheaper trade. He then gave me a trade of 18 emeralds for a mending book, which seemed fair to me. So once my 2 villagers were in place, I could then return to the nether to find some more ancient debris. On my return, I had forgotten to put on my golden armor, so I almost got killed by this piglin. And I also didn't know that they get aggroed if I open my own chest, so that was also scary. And finally, when I actually thought I was safe, I wasn't. So having safely returned, I now need to focus on my villager trades, which meant I need to get paper in order to get emeralds. So I went ahead and planted these sugar canes on the back side of my base behind the cows before eventually returning to the nether. And I went ahead and built a bridge over this hole in order to reach my newly planted sugar canes. So I could now start trading and finally saving up some emeralds in order to make some trades. And all of a sudden on day 121 I got invaded by some pillagers, so I had to handle them. One of them also dropped their crossbow, so I got the Old Betsy achievement. And as the days continued, I just continued to farm the sugar canes. Also went ahead and made a new diamond shovel, which I enchanted and got Unbreaking and Efficiency 3. I had returned to the nether once again to try and find a bastion, however still no luck. And one of the days I didn't have any internet, so my skin changed to this standard Minecraft skin. Anyways, I could now buy myself a mending book, which I could then put on my pickaxe. I returned to the nether once again to try and find a bastion, so I went on a pretty big adventure to try and find one. And I stumbled upon some pretty interesting places while going on this journey. And there were absolutely some close calls. Sadly, after traveling so far, there were still no signs of finding a bastion, so I returned and mined some more ancient debris. Once I returned, I cooked up the remaining netherite I had found. And then it was time to prepare to return to the nether once again to really find a bastion. So this time I decided to start in the opposite direction from last time, and eventually I might have found something. And finally, after some time, there it was, the bastion. So I went ahead and made a little bridge to the other side and made myself a little makeshift base. I did spot some chests, however they were really guarded by many piglins. But when I went over, I also found a singular chest which looked a bit safer. However, for now that chest could wait, as I wanted to build a bridge over to the other chests. And being the noob that I am, I only thought the piglins attacked if I opened the chest, so things really turned scary really quickly. At this point I was running for my life, but I thought I was safe because I had made myself a makeshift base. What I didn't know was that piglins could open doors. NANI?! So, oh my lord, I really thought everything was over. Luckily, having escaped that, I made my way back to the singular chest that I found earlier, and I got some pretty nice loot. And wouldn't you know it, I found a netherite upgrade on the first chest. And since I almost had a heart attack and that was everything I needed, I quickly made my way back home. And luckily, since I had so many diamonds, I could make myself a couple of netherite upgrade templates, which meant now I could make myself netherite armor. And with that, I headed over to the smithing table to finally get to work. And just like that, I now had the best armor in the game. This meant that I was soon ready to finally tackle on the Ender Dragon. I headed down to the enchantment table, but since I was only level 31, I could only enchant one armor piece. But I also wanted to bring some potions with me to the end, so I started on this building where I could brew my potions. Once the building was complete, I then started to work on the pathway up to the building. I then went around placing down some bushes before eventually decorating the inside of the building. And once everything was in place, I could then start brewing everything I needed for the Ender Dragon fight. I took a potion of swiftness and headed down to the caves just to mine a bit more. And this turned out to be pretty lucrative. And in the following days I just focused on upgrading and enchanting everything I had. And at this point I needed some more ender pearls in order to craft the Eyes of Ender I needed in order to activate the end portal. And after getting 12 or so ender pearls, I made my way back home. I could then go ahead and make the remaining Eyes of Ender I needed. But before doing anything else, I headed over to a village I had seen earlier in the previous video to find some more villagers. Eventually I arrived and Operation Kidnap Some Villagers had begun. Initially, I had just captured this one villager, however his friend seemed to follow, which was okay to me. And just like that, I now had 2 new villagers to bring back to the base. And originally I figured it would be a challenge getting these new villagers into their new prison, however this guy seemed pretty keen on it. So yeah, this guy pretty much just walked into his own prison. And once he was safely in place, I could then return and get his friend. I then returned to the enchantment table where I got Feather Falling 3, which I really wanted for my netherite boots. I made one of the villagers into a Fletcher because of the trades where you could trade 32 sticks in order to get 1 emerald, and then the game continued of trying to find the enchantment I wanted, and eventually I got an efficiency 5. I went to my tree farm area to plant some spruce logs because I now needed a bunch of wood in order to make the emerald trades. However, since I had spent so much time gathering sticks, the efficiency 5 enchantment was now gone. Bruh. Anyways, it was now day 150 and it was time to kill the Ender Dragon. So I hopped in my boat and set the course towards the stronghold. On the way I had a little stop in order to get some more bamboo in order to make more scaffolding. Continuing the journey, it became nighttime, so I stole this guy's bed and slept there for the night. So, after finally arriving after this long journey, I actually managed to misclick one of the Eyes of Ender, and I only brought 10.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the
So this meant I had to make a quick stop by my base before eventually returning. And once I returned, it was now time to activate and jump in the portal. And let me just tell you, this is my first time ever going against the Ender Dragon solo. And of course, I absolutely failed with the water bucket. The rest of the towers went pretty smoothly. And eventually, I just had to focus on hitting the Ender Dragon, and especially in the area that hurts the most. Also went ahead and grabbed some of this dragon's breath. And just like that, the Ender Dragon was officially killed. I could then just go ahead and collect all this juicy XP. And of course I had to get the most important item, which was the dragon egg. Also went and checked out the next portal, however that will have to be for another part. And I woke up on a rainy day, ready to head back home. Then the real grind started once again of trying to find the Efficiency 5 enchantment book. I then got the idea of creating a to-do list of writing down the things I want to do around the base. Also want to make a shout out wall with some of the nice comments I received, so shout out to Call Me RDU8R for a nice comment. I then received the efficiency 5 trade finally, however it was really expensive, but I just couldn't bear trying to find the trade again, so yeah, I just went ahead and traded. And now, since I had 66 levels from the Ender Dragon, I went ahead and brought some books over to the enchantment table in order to enchant those. I got a couple of useful books, however my experience drained very quickly. Anyways, I went ahead and put Depth Strider on my boots. I also upgraded to efficiency 5 on my netherite pickaxe, and my diamond axe received efficiency 3 for now at least. And with my new axe I went on a little woodcutting spree. I also just went ahead and cut down the big dark oak tree down at my base. I then chopped down a bunch of trees on the top of the mountain beside my base for maybe a future project. And then my Silk Touch pickaxe was reborn as Silky. I also got around adding mending to my jar axe. So one of the items on my to-do list was to make a automatic farm, or semi-automatic at least, so I got to work on that. And I figured a good place to have this would be inside of the mountain beside the railway system, and I think it ended up working pretty good. So the way I ended up doing this was putting a bunch of pistons down at the end that would hold back water, and when I pull the lever it will let the water go. However, I haven't touched redstone in forever, so I had a bit of a problem getting it to work. And in the end I got something to work, and it did look pretty, but that doesn't matter. But I did have some technical issues while working on it, as you can see. And this happened a few times. But in the end, everything was well. So then, by adding a couple of hoppers and a chest in the end, everything was ready to go. I just needed to plant the crops. But once again, on the next day, I was attacked by a bunch of pillagers, so I had to deal with them. I then went ahead and decorated the mine shaft a little bit to make it a bit more appealing by adding these wooden logs in it. And of course I continued doing these emerald trades in order to get mending on every single item I had. I could then remove the automatic or semi-automatic food farm from the to-do list. And now, since I had mending on most of my items, I could head down to the XP farm in order to mend them. However, I felt that the current XP farm as it stood was really suboptimal, so I went ahead and remade it to make it more optimal. And I think it definitely ended up being a lot more efficient. I then just stood there for a while just repairing my items. On my way back I saw that most of the crops had grown, so I could finally test my semi-automatic farm. And it seemed to work pretty good. So the next thing I wanted to do on my list was to build a bridge over to the other side of the river. And sadly I had a lot of cinematic shots while working on this, however they got lost or corrupted or something, so just bear with me. Anyways, before starting on the bridge itself, I started on this walkway alongside the mountain to where I wanted the bridge to eventually start. So I took a step back to look how everything was coming along, and yeah. I then went along adding more textures to the wall so it didn't look so plain. I then headed out and got some more leaves to use as bushes. And yeah, it ended up looking okay, I guess. It was then time to start working on the fencing along the pathway, and yeah, it was kind of a mess, but it worked. I then started on the bridge itself, going all the way across the river. And then after some time, I think I got the arch of the bridge looking pretty good. I kept working on the bridge the next couple of days, and in the end I think it ended up looking very nice. While working one of the days I got attacked by this drowned zombie, and I killed him and he dropped another one of his tridents. And at this point I realized that I really wasn't happy with how my house looked, so I went ahead and added some more details and textures to it, and yeah, it ended up looking pretty good. I also went ahead and changed the walls on the top floor from oak to spruce. And at this point I really felt like my base was really coming together. I also did some upgrades on the surrounding farm area. And after 182 days I finally changed my bed sheets. I figured since the trees weren't growing, it was maybe because of this tree, so I decided to torch it down. Oh, and by the way, while editing this video, I hit 99 magic in old school RuneScape. Nice. So the trading continued and I got more mending books. I then took a step back to look at my to-do list, and I decided I wanted to make a horse stable next. So yeah, this is how it turned out, and I think it does its job in being a stable for a horse, as long as I get one. This meant that I could now remove it from the to-do list. I then headed to the backside of my base in order to start on another little project, I guess, at least starting to clear out the whole area so I can build something there in the future. I then of course had to make the pathway from the bridge down to this new camp. I also started tidying up the other side of the bridge a little bit, because I don't really know what to put here yet. Also, another thing on my list was to make a dragon egg trophy highlight display, so I got to work on that. And while doing this, of course, I misclicked and the egg teleported away, so I had to go on a little Easter hunt to find it. But there you go, that was the dragon egg display completed. I then traded for yet another mending book and put that on my shovel. Then headed to the XP farm to fix my tools and my armor. Then did some farming to get some more emeralds. This so I could get another mending book to put on my pants. I then realized that I couldn't have an empty stable standing there, so I had to go on a little adventure to find a horse. In the end, I found a horse all the way over with the stronghold, and after a bit of trouble, I actually managed to tame him. Yeah, so now I just had to get him out of this ravine. So after riding back to the boat, I could then put a leash on him and drag him all the way back to the base. On my little adventure I found some vines, so I decided to go around and place them. And if you have gotten this far in the video, remember to subscribe. Also, if you have any ideas you want me to build, just leave them down below in the comments. I then just went around for a bit, just doing general maintenance around the base. I also cleared out this area because I might want to build something here in the future. There wasn't a path up to the tree farm which I wanted, so I went ahead and started working on that. And I also made this little camp alongside it. And just like that, I could easily walk up to my tree farm. I then added this wall behind the sheep. I did some more wood cutting. And I headed over to my cows to feed them once again. Before butchering them, of course. I wasn't really a fan of the dark oak wood down at the harbor, so I went ahead and replaced it with spruce. And suddenly, while working on this, I got invaded by a huge swarm of zombies. This hasn't really happened before, so I was really confused. Anyways, I had survived the night and made it to day 200. And on this day, I just walked around for a bit, admiring everything I've done. So yeah, that's it for now. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and especially if you want 300 days of Minecraft. Also, I want you to leave a comment if you have any ideas on what I should do next. See you next time.